Hey, what's up, guys? I wanted to just add this in because a lot of my videos have been filmed and a lot of things have changed. And the big announcement is the F30 has actually been sold. It's actually been gone for about a month. I decided I needed some more drama in my life, in a good way. And I picked up a E90 M3 that I'm going to be sharing with you guys in the next couple of videos, switching over to modding that vehicle. And but yeah, I'm a little sad by the F30 going. It was a really beautiful car. It handled fantastically. It was actually a great size for my family. The E90, I got the sedan. So it's not an E92, it's an E90, and it's a little smaller, but will do. But the one major complaint, as I've said before, with the F30 328 model, the N26, is just the sound. The car has really no sounds. It doesn't sound that great at idle. And coming from a V8 M3, I'm sorry, a V8 M5, and a whole bunch of naturally aspirated engines, even my twin turbo S4, they sounded better. And I really enjoy like engine noise from a vehicle, obviously in a nice exhaust tone, which I couldn't really get from the F30. And as much as I love that car, it was a beautiful car. I love that Astral Blue. I decided to kind of jump on the E90 M3 wagon before the prices like skyrocket on those. I don't know if you guys ever pay attention, but a lot of those naturally aspirated V8 models, whether it's older M5s or these M3s or even other cars, are going up in value because everything's going to turbo, and things are not quite the same. There's a lot of advantages with turbos, but from the purist standpoint, from the sound, driving experience, I don't think anything really beats a naturally aspirated engine. So I wanted to grab one before they became too expensive. So I'm going to share that with you guys in the next couple of videos. I'll tell you the story on how I got it, and it is a story. It was not a smooth transaction, and yeah, so stay tuned. But a couple of things we need to address is, one, this car is on factory suspension. This is not a competition pack, so it does sit a little higher, and the brake pads are due to be replaced. And so today I'm going to try to do, I don't know if you guys can see, the Swift springs. So I've never done suspension on an EDC E90 before. I just did the whole swap out on the X5, which did have EDC, but it's a little different. So I'm going to take you guys through this process. Again, this is not like a how-to video, but I think it will help. Try to show you guys everything you need to do this, and any caveats maybe that I find along the way. All right, so stay tuned. Oh, before that, first things first. When you're taking off your wheels, front wheels, back wheels, break the lug nuts loose first, simply because you don't know how tight they really are, and you don't really want to be dealing with that more so than you need to when the car is lifted up. Obviously, if you have an impact gun, it doesn't really matter as much. But if you're using like if you're manually trying to do it, put your weight on it, it's better to do it on the ground. Again, just break them loose, don't take them out. Don't get them really loose because, again, all the weight's on them. But break them loose, lift the car up, then unbolt them all the way and take your wheels off, all right? So again, try to be a little safe. All right, stay tuned. Let's see what happens. I'm going to start on the rear. All right, boys and girls, so we're back. Now we're doing the lowering springs for the rear of the E90 M3. So I already started taking things apart, so I can kind of tell you guys what to do. So here's what you got to do. First, you have to disconnect the sway bar. There is basically let me see, I think this is a 15. Yeah, a 15 mil nut, just like this one, sitting on this side. When you start trying to unbolt it, this will spin. So what I recommend, you can use just like basically something like this, clamp it on tight just to keep it from spinning. That worked for me. So you want to disconnect that. Then you can actually see it better now that it's down and the spring's out of the way. Right there is where the level, the sensor sits. I kind of pushed it out of the way. So this basically bolts up right to there. That is a 10 mil nut. And then you also, it's like the same exact thing with a sway bar. You're gonna need a 10 mil wrench to hold it in place while you do that. Then next, you want to disconnect your shock. Let's see if I can get down low enough here. Okay, so this is the shock. It's an 18 mil bolt. It does not have a nut on the other side. It's built in. So take that off first, and then you want to disconnect this part. That is a 21 mil, and it has a 21 mil nut on the other side. It is on very tight. I have to use basically both hands to break it loose. So just FYI. Also, when I was doing this last part, I put a small jack. I have like one of these, but obviously if you have a full-size jack, that'd be better. Underneath the control arm, just in case if it dropped or anything like that, just to support it. It doesn't actually want to seem to move on its own very much. And basically, once you get to that point, all you're gonna do is push down on this thing, and that will let you pull the spring out. And so this is the factory OEM spring. The top stayed in place, the top pad and the bottom pad came out with it. Looks like it's in good shape, so I'm gonna keep it. And then putting it back together basically is just reverse. I'm gonna start doing that part and just let you guys know of any caveats or any like tips or tricks to get it back in. But it seems fairly straightforward. I don't know if you guys can see it, I nailed my thumb, so that's like purple. You probably can't see it on the phone, but on the camera, I nailed it really hard trying to taking this nut off. So all right, stay tuned, guys. All right, guys and girls, just before we move we move to the front, just want to give you a couple of little tips on the back. Take out the top spring pad and the bottom spring pad. The bottom one definitely goes in only one way. You'll actually see like these little dimples on the bottom, and then there's like a notch towards the back. The smaller clip part goes into that. But basically what you want to do is take your new spring, line up your your top spring spring pad, I guess, and then line up your bottom one. So keep an eye and make sure you know which one is top or bottom. It definitely looks like it's more coiled at the bottom than it is at the top. So put them on exactly where they're supposed to be, like fully seated. Then push the lower control down and then slide it into place and push it in. It's a lot easier than trying to doing it while it's in there. Also, you will need to basically lift the bottom of the control arm. The shock will kind of like slide in place on its own. It's almost like it has its own like little groove in there. But the back, this bushing right here, there's a bushing in there. You basically want to raise it to the point where you can actually line up the bolt, because otherwise it's not going to fit. It's a little finicky. So that being said, everything else is just reverse order. Tighten this one first, then do the shock, then do mine happen to be perfectly lined up for the sway bar link, and then don't forget the level sensor in the back, and you should be good to go. Okay, and then next let's do the front. All right, guys, so we're replacing the front springs with the Swift springs. Here's what I've got going on so far. So I'm also changing the brakes, that's why the caliper's off. You can take them off completely if you want to. What I'm gonna try to do is try to basically compress the spring, unbolt the shock from the top, lower this down as far as I can and see if I can clear the fender with the top hat, and then remove the top hat, the spring, replace everything, put it back without taking the shock out. At this point, I pretty much have everything unbolted to actually take the shock out anyways on the bottom end. So we'll see if that will work or not, because obviously I don't want to damage the fenders. But here's what you need to do. So up here, sorry, right up there is your sway bar link, and so it's 15 for the bolt. And then again, just like with the rear, you're gonna need something. I use these to hold onto it because it will spin through. It doesn't need to be anything crazy, just something that will basically hold it in place. Sorry, the lighting's awful and it's making the video awful. Then I disconnected like you could see the bracket right here. It mounts right there. This is also the part that holds the shock in as well. So like I said, it's already unbolted, so I might just take the shock out anyways, but we'll see. But you want to take that off because your brake lines and a couple of other lines are, actually I think it's just your brake line that's connected to it. And then you could easily remove like the sensors and everything else off of it, but the brake line itself like goes through it. Oh shit. Ugh. Okay. Make sure your calipers supported really well. Apparently mine wasn't. Okay, but everything was loose. That's the nice part. It's like I already loosened everything up. Nothing got damaged, hopefully. So I loosened everything up, so I'll be able to move everything without tugging on anything. You can see right there, the black part right behind the little yellow right here. That's another level sensor. That's a 10 mil and a 10 mil wrench. It does the same thing. It spins through, so you just need a socket, a 10 mil socket and a 10 mil wrench to hold it and take it off really easy. And that's really it, I think, on the bottom. What I'm gonna do now at this point is lower the car. So it's, as you can probably tell, I have a jack underneath this black one. It's supporting the hub, and that will compress the suspension. And then I will put the spring compressor on the springs, and I won't have to do as much wrenching to tighten it. And then I'll be able to unbolt the top. There's like 3 bolts, I believe, and lower everything basically back out, and we'll see what happens. So stay tuned. All right, guys and girls. Well, this was fun. As you can kind of tell, the new springs are in. No, you don't have to take the shock out or off. Basically what you need to do, so after you disconnect the sway bar, after you get the bracket and everything else like I talked about before disconnected, you're going to want to support the hub here, and then you want to go up top and you basically want to disconnect the EDC. If you have EDC, what I recommend is you pull this cap off. Yeah, my little flashlight's going too. You'll pull this cap off first, then disconnect this, and then inside of this cap, there's a connector literally that attaches to the very top of the shock. Just wiggle it off. That's all it is. It just nice and gentle, just pull it off. Once you do that, this can unbolt these. There's 3 of them, 1, 2, 3. This one's under here, but leave one just at least a little bit on. You can start unbolting the shock bolt if you want. You'll need a 21-inch wrench and a 10-inch socket, because typically, at least in my experience, I know supposedly under load you don't need it, but every time I try to do it, it always spins through because it's basically attached to the shock, so the shock will spin. You can basically put the 10 mil socket on top and then use a 21 inch 21 inch mill wrench to loosen it up. Don't take it off all the way. Just loosen it a little bit, because you kind of have access to it, but you don't have to do that. You can also do that part later. Once you do that, loosen this this control arm that's kind of sitting right behind. Oh, great! Right there. You can see the bolt right there. Sorry, it's really hard to see with the camera. It's right behind here. You don't have to take it off, just loosen it. At that point, put something under. Hopefully you have a jack. Put something under here to support it. Unbolt the last bolt, and then slowly lower everything down. And then you're gonna have to basically push it down, grab the top head with your hands, and slowly pull it. Sorry. Pretty much to like right in here. It seems to be like the best area to pull it out. So just push it down, watch the studs so you don't mess up your fenders, and then it will stick out basically like right here. At that point, you can use your spring compressor tool, lock down the spring, take the top head off, and then the spring will come right out. If you want to replace like your spring pads, upper, I don't even know if the lower ones you can change, but you can replace them if you want to, if they're bad. And sorry, this has been a little bit of trial and error here to figure this out. And then put your new spring on, put the top head on, make sure you keep all there's washers in there and things like that. Just keep them in the same pattern. So there's one that sits right above the bump stop, and then there's one that sits at the top right here, basically underneath the bolt, the nut you're gonna take off. So it's pretty simple, just if you pay attention. And then once you do that, you can start bolting. So you put the new hat on, push it in, start slowly jacking up. Sorry, this is really bad. Start slowly jacking up the whole assembly, and then make sure you line it up. There is a little pin that sticks out at the top, so the top head only goes in one way. And basically just slowly keep going, keep lining it up. You can get your hands in there to spin it just as you need to. And then once you get close enough, you can put the nuts back on and just tighten them up. You are supposed to put blue fret locker on those, which of course I don't have, so I'm gonna have to take those off later and just make sure that's done correctly. And then other than that, it's just start putting everything back together. You might have to jack the car either up or down, depending on what position you're in, to get the sway bar lick in place. Basically just start reattaching everything back up. The only thing I have to say, I'm pretty certain the rule is for control arms, the car has to be under full load when you tighten it. So what that basically is going to mean is once you basically bolt everything, put everything back together, you need to put something underneath the wheel hub here, like a jack or a jack stand, depending. Lower the car so full weight is on there, and then tighten up the sway bar under full load. I believe that is the way. I will put it in the notes if it's different in the comments or description. Okay. And that's pretty much it. So just plug everything back up and make sure you hook up the level sensor. That tends to be something I forget all the time. And just put all the brackets back, everything back, and you should be good to go.